This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and does not provide medical or legal advice. Please consult with a qualified professional before making any decisions regarding your health or legal situation.
On the subject of marijuana in particular. That is the purpose of this meeting, ladies and gentlemen, to lay the foundation for a nationwide campaign by you to demand by law such compulsory education.
High in the Ozark Mountains, it's the Greene County Podcast with Mike and Mason.
Welcome to another episode of
Greene County Podcast.
We have a name.
Good to say.
We have a name.
Yeah, that's the name, Greene County Podcast.
But we spell it differently than the other county. We have a very special guest today. Jacob from Bison and Zen Infused is joining us to give us a peek behind the curtain about how our favorite products are made. We're also going to break down all the options available for cannabis consumption. There's a lot to choose from, so we've got a lot to talk about. I'm Mike the intern.
I'm Mason, and today we are going to be talking about all the different types of strains, the effects, and consumption. There's so many different ways to do it, and there's so many things to do.
You know, it can be pretty overwhelming when you walk into a dispensary for the first time and you look at like every single product they have, every different way that you can use it.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you find that out, every single product has different variations, indica, sativa, what do the terpenes mean, what's CBD, what's THC, CBG.
So many options.
There are a lot of things to dive into this, so this might be a little heady for you, and we'll try to make it as easy and digestible as we possibly can. But most recently, I'll give you a personal story. I was in a dispensary in town, and there were two older women, one of which was a cancer patient, and she was talking about how she used THC to help with her pain management and appetite because she was going through chemo.
Mm-hmm.
And which I thought was just amazing that she had discovered that on herself. But in this dispensary, they had a basic, like a lineup of all the different terpene profiles and what they do, whether it's gut health, pain management, helping with sleep, anxiety, whatever that looks like. And they all benefit that. And they still had no idea what those were.
Mm-hmm.
And they had been using this stuff forever and ever and ever. So you can, if you get lucky, find something that works for you in the case of this woman. Or if you keep coming back going, oh, this makes me feel this way and I don't like that. Or this isn't helping me with this and I thought this would help me. You can just change it up.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, medically, they're coming out with they're finding new things all the time. I can't think of the word, receptor channels and whatnot, and how these chemicals in cannabis actually affect us.
You imagine how further we'd be if we had been able to scientifically study this,
dude,
since the beginning, instead of just creating a Schedule I drug and then saying, nope, it's as bad as heroin and cocaine and we're not touching it.
Well, hopefully that's changing in 2024.
That's the piggyback on what you're saying is that now that this is open and the federal government is getting involved, and I think in 2023 was the most that they had actually allowed different scientists to actually study this, what the benefits are, what the bad things are, because it would, like we've mentioned before, with anything that you take every day, there's always going to be negatives to it.
Mm-hmm.
But you want the pros to outweigh the negatives, and you never really want to do anything that's going to hurt you. But again, as they keep doing more science about this stuff, the benefits are definitely outweighing the cons, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. So where to get started is a big question people always have. And honestly, let's start with strains. It's the easiest thing.
Okay.
Two basic things when people think of strains, there's indica and there's sativa, right? And they grow differently. Two, they normally have different chemical compositions and very similar. So people like to think sativas are kind of like more creative, more uplifting, a little bit more energy, and indicas are a little bit heavier, normally are aligned with like pain management and stuff like that.
Sleeplessness.
Yeah.
The easiest way to think of it is sativa is your morning cup of coffee and indica is your nightcap.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't have to be like that. And it's not to say that you would use an indica in the morning and just, it would be like taking some, cold medicine and it just knocks you out. That's not how it works.
Yeah.
It's just how it hits you. And sometimes, you would get something that's a sativa, but it feels like an indica.
Yeah.
It could be a really, really heady sativa. And that is where you get the hybrid.
Yeah. I was going to say hybrids are a huge thing now because they're trying to bring the best of both worlds from indica and sativa. There's a lot of people that want like daytime pain management, but they don't want to feel sleepy and groggy and like all foggy headed. And there's a strain for that. There's other people that like they have insomnia and they stay up all night long. They just want something to literally knock them out. And there's a lot of heavy indicas that can do that for you.
Now, from the perspective of a cultivator, another reason there's a lot of hybrids out there is because of cross-pollination, what a lot of these growers and breeders, and a breeder is basically what you would call someone that creates seeds that are then grown. What they're finding is when they cross these plants, those really heavy sativas and indicas kind of merge, and anymore, that's why when you walk into a dispensary, your hybrids are going to be the most popular thing because that's the most common anymore. True sativas and true indicas, I think we're getting further and further away from, either because of what you said, trying to pull the best from each, or because of all the crossing that they're doing with all these different plants. And you can say that definitively, is it really truly an indica anymore?
Yeah.
Is it truly a sativa anymore? And back to what I said, you can get a sativa and be like, whoa, this is not, it's not as bright as I thought it would be. It's more of a heavy than an indica would. And I think that has to do with the way the cultivation scene have been going on for the last 20 years, because it's just getting finer and finer. And also, I don't know, part of me thinks it's a good thing because we're moving forward. Part of me thinks it's a bad thing because it's become oversaturated.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? In the sense that you can't find, whatever, 1978 Dom Perignon. It's not going to be the same as one that was done 20 years ago. And everyone's seeking out that profile because you can't find it anymore. Eventually, those profiles that we've come to know and love with certain different plants are going to be gone. Unless someone's, keeping a mother alive and doing cuttings and stuff like that too.
I think it's going to create a unique experience overall because I kind of think of it like dog breeds.
True.
There's these pure breds, there's these pure strains, and I mean it's harder and harder to find every year because people just keep crossbreeding them. But we also get some amazing things out of that crossbreeding.
Yeah, also very true. And you wouldn't have what cultivators call auto. And if really quickly, we're going to get into a whole episode of cultivation down the road, but just real quickly, just so you know, there are two types of plants that grow. There's the photo, which is your traditional year-round. It's summertime. The sun is up a certain amount of time and not. Those are the natural progression plants. Auto, they just flower automatically regardless of the light schedule. And so that's the difference. If you hear us talking about photo versus auto, we would not have auto flowering plants had it not been for crossing these plants early on with different plants that do this naturally.
Yeah.
It's incredibly, again, you get to this thing where you get those stereotypes of stoners and they don't do anything and they lay around all over the place. But if you really dive into the science behind some of the stuff that these guys have been doing for years, well before it was legal, it's pretty amazing.
It is. I mean, it's literally the same thing they do to get those fancy strawberries or those cotton candy flavored grapes.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, but with flowers.
Yep. And again, it comes down to the way they look, the aroma they give off, and of course, the effects. Now, let's move into the next one, which is some of the active compounds in the plant known as marijuana.
There's a whole cannabinoid crew going on there.
There are a lot of different schools of thought here, but before THC became legal in the state of Missouri, first medically and then, of course, recreationally, you could actually get what is the non-psychoactive compound in marijuana, and that's CBD. A lot of people swear by this stuff. CBD, I think there's a big benefit from. Inflammation is one of the biggest, I think, huge. There are a lot of people that I know that will just eat raw plant just to get the benefits from that in addition to the THC, just so that they have that CBD in their joints, inflammation, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. Personally, I tried it a couple times and I didn't really think, but again, as a user, I think I'm getting enough CBD in my usage just without it. So I should have done a tea break maybe for like a month and then see for scientific purposes, but I didn't.
Maybe there's a whole bunch of just like CBD heavy, almost no THC strains out there.
There's 1-to-1 ratios.
Have you ever maybe gone on a tea break with one of those? You can still keep smoking, but you break off that psychoactive part.
I'll tell you right now, probably the biggest benefit from CBD, and I'm not a doctor, I'm just telling you from personal perspective here, is if you are really, really hungover, the best hangover cure, in my opinion, and I have found, outside of giving an IV drip, like you can get in Vegas, or you can get them here, I guess, if you know a nurse, is to do a dab of CBD the next day. It'll make your eyes uncrossed immediately.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't know how.
Mike's hangover remedy.
It actually is Bondo's, which he's the one who told me about it. But at the same time, like it worked. I tried it. But again, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. I just was like, yeah, it's interesting. Let me try that. And I was like, okay, yeah, that works. So yeah, CBD, there is definitely a benefit there. And if you are the type of person, and there are many that don't like how THC makes them feel, either makes them feel out of control, paranoid, high anxiety, but you're still looking for some of the benefits, CBD is a good place to start.
I grew a CBD strain once called CBD Dance Hall. It made me a little sleepy. Didn't really make me high at all because, didn't have any of the psychoactive components in it. It was just a really nice, mellow feeling.
The next thing to talk about, of course, is the THC element in marijuana. There again is a psychoactive. It also depends, the effects there are depending on your usage, how you use it, how much you use, and all that stuff. But right out of the gate, it's the thing that gets you stoned. If you want,
when people are saying, "Oh man, I got so high," they're talking about the THC
that
the
they
level.
Smoke. Now, do not get that confused, because a lot of times you walk into a dispensary and everyone automatically out of the gate thinks the higher THC, the higher you're going to get.
Nope,
that is
not how it works.
Not the case at all. You can get a lower THC that has a higher terpene count, and you're going to get more flavor. And you could benefit more from a lower percentage THC with a higher terpene count than you would from a higher THC count with a lower terpene count.
Because that entourage effect, that's a thing too.
And that's what I wanted to get to. Back to CBD, I think all parts of the plant should be used as a 1-2 punch. The THC has a benefit, the CBD has a benefit, and they need to be used together if you want to use them together. There is something else that happens, and as the trichomes, which are the little tiny microscopic, they look like clear mushroom heads really on the plant. Back in the day, they would have called them crystals.
Yeah, the crystals on those. Yeah, when you hold it up to light and it sparkles.
It's that sparkly stuff. Those are your trichomes, and that is where THC comes from, right off of those trichomes. After a certain point, those THC trichomes will convert into what is called CBG. Now, for example, if you have, let's say, a big grow, and you dry and cure, obviously, your buds and your plant, you trim and all that stuff, and you leave a bunch of shake, over time, that THC level is going to come down and it's going to convert into CBG. Some people actually like that because CBG will almost always make you sleepy. So if you, for example, have a bunch of that stuff and the THC level is coming down, but the CBG level is going up, it's going to make you, at least in my opinion, a little bit more heady, a little bit more sleepy. Think more indica, I guess, would be the best way to do it. But with all of these, if you're getting into it, or you're just now discovering it, or maybe you did it in high school and you took some time off and now you're at the other end of your life and you want to get back into it, remember, you can always take more, you can't take less. So slow and steady wins the race. And continue to try everything that you possibly can. Don't just give up and just have, one bad experience and be like, this is the way it's going to be all the time, because it's not.
Yeah,
it really isn't.
Oh no, not at all. It takes all kinds.
in trial and error. And then, after a few times and you're like, man, this just isn't for me, then that's just the way it is. There are a lot of things in my life that I don't, pain meds, for example, I don't like them. I don't like the way they make me feel. Last time I got prescribed them for a root canal, I was like, I'm not touching those things. So, it's just like, that's just my personal opinion because of the way it makes me feel. So I completely understand when it comes to marijuana, if that's your stance, totally makes sense.
Yeah. So we know that there are a bunch of different types of strains,
billions
breeds.
We could make up a strain right now if we wanted.
Yeah, and they're all filled with different cannabinoids, is what they're all, that affect your endocannabinol system. I don't want to get too scientific, but our body has like the sympathetic, parasympathetic system when it comes to like getting massages or how your body deals with hormones and stuff like that. We have another system that is specifically focused on cannabinols, and we have receptors in our body. They all connect, and that's what gives us the effects. So now that we know all that, what do we buy? Because there's flower. Let's go down the list of the ways in which you can consume cannabis.
Flower, edibles, topical. You can pill form, vaporizing.
A dangerous man's game, dabs.
Yeah, dabs, concentrates,
extracts, concentrates.
Vape pens. Again, there are a million different ways, but really it should start with a conversation with the budtender, whoever is working at the dispensary. 9 times out of 10, they're going to know a lot, and probably more than you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
So you just need to be honest. Like it's no different than if you would walk into your doctor's office and you go in for your yearly and you've been dealing with lower back pain. If you go in there and you don't tell them when they ask you what's going on and you're like, I'm good, then you're not going to solve the problem. So go in there. Don't feel like you're a nerd or you're not a cool guy. They are there and they love answering those questions. They love being the one to say, hey, oh, you're dealing with this. This is what I would suggest. I have other patients that deal with that. You have to be honest upfront and understand that there is no wrong question and that you're not stupid for asking them.
No, not at all, because there's so much variety and so many names for things too. I think honestly, vaporizers and concentrates are probably the most confusing because you've got full spectrum, you've got CO2 distillate, you've got when it comes to concentrates, there's sauce, sugar, shatter. There's so many variations of it that all they're either named differently because of the processing or they're named differently because of like terpene and cannabinol content.
And again, we could talk, we'll go back to the vape stuff. And you just said full spectrum versus distillate. That'd probably be the two that I would separate them in. Full spectrum is where they take everything from the plant. So it would be as close as to actually burning the bud with a lighter as you could without actually doing it. Distillate is where they take a process to remove all the THC off of the plant, add it back in, and add terpenes and flavoring back in. Personally, I'm a full spectrum guy. I think it feels better. Not to say that the other one's worse. It's just my personal preference.
See, I go back and forth because like with full spectrum, you get that cannabis flavor almost every time, varying levels of it, but it tastes like the plant. It's strain specific. But with distillates, you can have flavor specific profiles. So a strain specific would be like blueberry kush. It's a genetic strain. But if you do a distillate, it could be blueberry flavored and it'd be any strain.
That's just the vaporizer.
That's just the vaporizer.
And we talked about dabs and concentrates as something that Mason and myself like a lot. But it's all about balance. But yes, you've got batter, you've got sugar, you've got diamonds, you've got wax, you've got sugar wax, cured sugar. You get there's a million different names, but
we don't have time to go through all of them right now. But we do on our website.
Oh yeah.
greencountypodcast.com. Any extra questions that we're not going to address in this episode,
Yeah,
Guarantee you can
that's
find it
actually a
there.
really good point. We do have a website, greencountypodcast.com. If you're hearing us talking about something and we like just talk about it and then boom, fly past it, as we sometimes do, there are resources on that website that you can go and really dive into. As far as the concentrates, yeah, we can get into a billion different things, but bottom line is what they are, whether it's batter, shatter, butter, whatever, it's basically the process in which the THC is taken off the plant. So if they use butane or CO2 or a press, or I mean, there's a million different things.
Oh yeah.
But that's basically what you're getting. And again, with anything more specifically concentrates like this, there are a lot of people who will tell you they've done it once and that was the last time they ever did it again. It just depends on your level of tolerance and what you're willing to deal with.
Yeah, and I would agree with Mike when he was saying, talk to your bud tender. There's people at these dispensaries that their job is to be informed and help you make an informed decision when it comes to buying. But build that relationship with them. You might find somebody that's really cool, that knows everything about exactly what you want, and then you have a new friend as well.
And again, that's what they're there for, and that's what they like to do. That's why they work there. And they're going to know exactly what they're talking about.
Speaking of, we got a very special guest today from a brand I've definitely used on the regular, Bison and Zen Infused.
Welcome to the Green County Podcast. I'm Mike. That's Mason. And down below us is Jacob Campbell from Bison Extracts. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit in here and talk with us this morning, sir.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
So Mason and I are big into extracts, concentrates. What is it exactly that Bison does? Let's get real specific here.
So Bison Infused is a manufacturer of infused products. So we mainly make pre-rolls. We are the sole contractor of Zen Infused. They are our main gummy line. They make tinctures, chocolate bars, etc., things like that. So those are going to be the main products that we make. Is mostly distillate infused products. We also have FECO-based capsules. So those are going to be typically about what we do. We also have 510 thread vaporizers, as well as disposable vapes as well.
Nice.
So do you guys all do all this stuff on site where you're located? All the things that you mentioned, is that stuff that you manufacture? Or?
We actually source our extracts. So we infuse the products and then we package and distribute them. Whereas other companies would create the distillate or the concentrate that we would puck up or use in our vapes.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes totally sense. So how'd you get into doing this?
I've been a cannabis user for some time, and just kind of being around the right people, I guess. I started out this job when it was in its infancy, just as a contract employee, and just kind of stayed around until they had a spot for me.
Nice.
And I've been here almost 2.5. Yeah. I've been here almost 2.5 years. So.
As far as, let's get back to the infused products, that someone that might not know is that, yes, just beyond the flower, there are so many different things that you can do with extracts and infusing them, whether that's eating it with food, or as you mentioned, pre-rolls with putting in concentrate with the pre-rolls to kind of change what it does, the strength level, all that good stuff. And then of course the vape cartridges a lot of people use as well.
Those are very popular.
Very, very, very popular. I hesitate to think if they had been available when I was a kid, how much trouble that I would have gotten into, or maybe not have gotten into had I had access.
The discretion and dosage is very nice for vapes, but yeah, they can definitely lead to overconsumption.
The green out, as we like to call it.
The green out.
So what's your day-to-day look like with Bison?
I get here about 5:30 to 6, and we start production. We have a kitchen side which handles all of the Zen products, so they'll typically get gummies going or chocolate, whereas we would be working on running pre-rolls, infusing pre-rolls, making vapes, packaging all of our Bison products or our Zen products, and getting orders ready for the day.
Man, I bet there's a lot of people helping out. What kind of crew you got there?
So for morning, I'm trying to think. So who's all here? 30. I know it's under 15 people, I'd say.
It's a lot.
But it's it's a pretty decent crew.
With regards to the vape cartridges, something that we both talked about on this podcast before is how great it would be to make your own, but how labor intensive it actually is to do that. And you mentioned you guys source out some of the extract for those.
Mhm.
So that takes away some of the process, but still it's very labor intensive after that.
Not necessarily. So when you make them at scale, it's much more simple. You have a machine that you fill with your distillate that's mixed with your terpenes or however you're building your cart. Then you basically shoot it into your hardware, cap it, and send it off to testing.
Well, that's with
Wow.
someone that has access to that type of
Oh,
machine.
if you're wanting to make
I'm doing it by hand.
I was going to say, if you're wanting to do by hand at home, see that I also make carts at home, so that's actually a good question. So if you're just wanting to make some at home, first thing you're going to want to do is find good quality hardware. There's a lot of cheap hardware out there. If you just even want to try it, most smoke shops will have like maybe an empty gram cartridge or two, usually $4 or $5. I'll pick them up every now and then. They're not the best quality, but it's something to work with. And then you're going to need your extract, so wax, shatter, batter, anything like that. Some kind of small beaker or a little glass that's oven safe. And what you're going to want to do is decarb that. So put it in the oven, usually about 190, at least an hour or two until it stops bubbling, until it's like a clear consistency. Then you can suck that up. I use a glass syringe. Those you can get them on Amazon, $2-3. Use a blunt tip needle with it and suck up your concentrate. You can use terpenes to add to change the viscosity or change your flavor, whatever you want. But those are something you would source from, an online company, and then, or you can just use decarb sugar. I use just the concentrate by itself all the time. If it has a high enough terpene content, they taste really, really good. And just shoot it into the cartridge, cap it, and let it cool down, and now you have a vape.
It sounds easy, but that's honestly so much work. You gotta wait for your Amazon order to get.
Oh yeah,
you can
absolutely.
Just literally go to the store, grab some Bison, half grams, call it good.
That's the beauty of being able to purchase everything, especially with rec, is no more having to source things or make them yourself. You can just go straight to the dispo if you're over 21 and purchase.
So let me ask you this question. You mentioned the testing process. Everything that you guys make on site at Bison has to be sent off to the testing facilities here in the state to make sure
That's
that
correct.
the counts are right. How does that process work?
It's typically like for the company that we have used for a couple of years. They're a very reliable lab that most companies use across the state. I've noticed checking their COAs that it's about a 2 to 3 day process. They'll show up, they pick a random amount of samples depending on the size of batch. They take that and then it's tested through some sort of scientific process. Yes, and then they give us a sheet of paper that tells us, okay, you either passed or you failed based off of, let's say if we were selling a 1 gram pre-roll, it is a gram of product within a certain variance. And then what is the potency? What's the moisture content? Did it have any heavy metals, toxins, pesticides, microbial content, foreign content, things like that. So anything you don't want in there, all of our products are tested for that, and if it doesn't pass, then we don't sell it.
And that's a big point because a lot of people, and especially with the hesitation to get involved either on the medical or rec side, they think back to the days of buying it from your friend behind the bleachers at the high school football field. And he tells you what you get, and that's what you get. You don't have them testing it. They're not sending it away. What Jacob just went through is a really good point that this stuff is very, 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 very scrutinized. Everything that goes in that dispensary is extremely scrutinized. Recently, I think sometime last year, they had to pull a bunch of product because stuff wasn't looking right or wasn't working right or was old. I can't remember what the reason was.
Yeah,
but
that recall was pretty interesting for the whole industry.
And that affected everybody involved, really.
Yeah, they were, so because of the drought that was going on at the time for concentrate that most people were needing at the beginning of the boom of rec. That company kind of came out of the shadows and was like, hey, we have a lot of excess and it's a really good price. So most companies bought, and unfortunately a lot of people got burned. But I think it's in a process of people are, getting their money back and products unlocked and things like that.
You learn from it. I mean, again,
Absolutely.
we're still in the infancy of this whole thing, especially.
And it was not something anyone knew at all. They were passing it as legitimate product. And if they have testing that shows it is so, how are we or anyone supposed to interpret that any different?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Jacob, thank you so much for taking the time with us this morning and kind of giving us some insight into what you guys do over at Bison Extracts. Check them out. They're at every local dispensary. I know them. I see them all over the place. And again,
we're carried in almost every dispensary in the States.
Yeah. And Jacob's got his Bison shirt on too.
Absolutely.
So left out.
Check them out. Well, I just happened to get one at old Route 44. They hooked me up. Route 66. They hooked me up. So yeah, I appreciate that, guys, and appreciate Bison. Thanks for doing what you do. And I'm Mike. It's Mason. That's Jacob. And this is Green County Podcast. If you want to ever email us a question, can they email us?
Hit up the website.
And then
greencountypodcast.com, contact about that section. You can hit us up multiple ways. We're on social media at Green County Podcast.
Facebook, Instagram. You can hit it. Yeah, Green County Podcast, either one. You can message us there. We're there. So again, if there's another question that you have that you don't feel comfortable asking a bud tender or whatever, ask us.
Yeah, we'd love to bring it up on the next episode.
Yeah. So questions. Even if it's a stupid question, send us a question.
Mm-hmm.
I think that about covers it. Unless you want to talk about more strains and all kinds of weird cross-pollination.
I mean, honestly, we could talk about that for hours and hours and hours, and we're going to, but not on this episode.
Maybe this is just the intro to the different strains and products that you can get with cannabis. But as always, use responsibly. If you're 21 years or older, keep it away from the kids. Lock it up. Don't use and drive.
Be a responsible adult.
But as we said earlier, if you have any more questions, please hit us up, greencountypodcast.com, on Facebook, on Instagram. Share.
Yeah, follow this podcast. Yeah. Literally, or go on your friends' phones and then just like our podcast and subscribe to it on their phones. That would be amazing.
Yeah, if you could do that too.
I condone that behavior.
Yeah, steal their phone, steal their password, and like it.
Don't steal it.
And then share it. And keep following us, and we'll be back in a couple weeks with another episode of Green County Podcast. I'm Mike the Intern.
And I'm Mason.
Have a wonderful day, and keep your head up.
So that our children are obliged to learn the truth, because it is only through knowledge that we can safely protect them.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and does not provide medical or legal advice.